All right, so I've got a couple things besides like the playoffs on here, like football. So, do you want to start with the playoffs, or do you want to start with like award predictions?
We can do a work prediction first, and then we can get into the playoffs.
Okay. So the main ones that I like listed is like the rookies of the year for offensive and defensive. I've got coach of the year, MVP, and defensive player of the year. So offensive rookie of the year. I know that Puka Nakua had a great year, but I think that C.J. Stroud gets it because I mean you taking a subpar Texans team and throwing in some good rookie pieces, and he led them to a playoff berth. And I mean he put up great numbers all year. I don't have the specific stats on me right now, but I mean I think that he ran away with it at the end of the year. So what do you think about that?
No, I agree with you 100%. I think it's kind of hard to not give it to Stroud. Obviously, that sucks for Puka, but because of the heck of season he had, but it's kind of hard to not give it to Stroud at that point. Taking a Texans team who was in a dismal last year, and then you got a rookie head coach, a rookie quarterback, um, a good rookie class on the defensive side of the ball, and you go to the playoffs and you win your wild card game, and then you lose. I mean, it wasn't the best performance against the Ravens, but you're playing probably my MVP pick in Lamar Jackson, and I mean, 5 interceptions on the season for Stroud. Would have set the rookie record if he didn't miss any games with a concussion for total yards in the game. Finished the year on a 99 quarterback rating, so it's kind of hard not to give him the award there.
Mm-hmm. With defensive rookie of the year, I've got Will Anderson, and I know that it's another Texan, but I mean, like we've talked about, like the Texans just turned around their seat. I mean, turned around their like team with all of their new additions and like making the playoffs after like looking like I said, just not very good like the past couple of years, and having to bounce back from like the Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins years with J.J. Watt. I mean, it would have been Jalen Carter, but the Eagles' defense is already good enough as it is. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Jalen Carter was rookie this year. Um, Jalen Carter, I mean, he was a solid defensive player, but like the Eagles' defense would have been fine without him. I don't think that the Texans' defense would have been like as great without Will Anderson. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I think a little bit of my bias is going to come out here, being a Seahawks fan. I would have given it to Devin Witherspoon. I do think Jalen Carter is going to end up winning it, just looking at the odds for the Rookie of the Year award
Mm-hmm.
defensively. But just looking at Witherspoon and me being able to watch him all year and the growth that he showed, being the fourth pick overall from Illinois, 65 tackles, playing in that corner spot. He showed the ability to be like a Jamal Adams comparison, coming off the edge as a blitzer, playing a little bit of linebacker if needed, putting some hard hits down. 3 sacks out of the corner spot, which is pretty good. 55% of passes thrown in his direction were completed, which is a pretty good stat to have as your rookie year. His stats, if you look compared to Sauce Gardner's when he won Defensive Rookie of the Year, are pretty comparable. With Sauce giving up 5.3 yards per target last year, and Devin Witherspoon giving up only 5.4. But I do think it'll go to Jalen Carter. But if I had to pick, I would pick Devin Witherspoon probably.
Mm-hmm. Going to coach of the year, I had two. I either had the Texans coach, who I forgot to write his name down, or the other one I've got is Kyle Shanahan. But I mean, even though you've got a loaded team, you still got to coach them, and I think that Shanahan will deserve it in that case. Of course, with the rookie Texans coach, like I've already mentioned, it seems like I'm just giving all the awards to Texans, but I mean, it's because I've even seen them a little more this year because with me being a Titans fan and seeing that division just play out, I mean, the division is very promising with the Texans, and of course you've got the Colts with Anthony Richardson, Titans with Will Levis, and then the Jaguars, of course, with Trevor Lawrence. So I mean, me watching those teams like pan out this year and like seeing who was more successful and who wasn't. I got to see the Texans a little more, and it was more like of a surprise for me just like at the beginning. But then like once I started noticing like what who the Texans had around them with like the wide receiver core along with Stroud, and then like the defense, like how the Texans coach like panned it out and like helped them win. I think that he deserves it a lot. And of course, like I talked with the 49ers, they're just dominant all year. If they, I know that they, I'm blanking on who Brock Purdy threw 3 or 4 interceptions against, but it was one of the last weeks of the season that they had a little hiccup. But Shanahan has always like known like how to bounce back from stuff like this, and so I think that he's another one that deserves it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of dark horse candidates out there. When speaking about this, looking at like Mike Tomlin with the Steelers and what he was able to do, going off the 3 quarterbacks this year and still making the playoffs and almost beating the Bills in the first round on the road. You got Matt LaFleur and the development of Jordan Love from year 1 to year 2. Should have probably beat the 49ers. When watching that game, you just let things slip away from them at the end. You also got Sean McVay for the Rams. They had a abysmal season last year and turned it around with Puka Nacua and his development as a rookie. Kyron Williams as a second-year running back coming out of nowhere. And then you were talking about D'Amico Ryans with the Texans. I think I would probably put him first or second, but if I had a vote, I would probably put him second. Just because I like what Dan Campbell did with the Lions this year.
Yeah.
Potential, you just see growth each and every year out of him, and they only keep getting better and better. It was sad to see them lose and give up that 24-7 lead at half against the Niners on the road. I would have liked to see what they could have done in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. I think that would have been a favorable matchup for them. But I like what he does. I like how he gets the players to buy in for him. Even though he's got some outlandish quotes out there about buying kneecaps, but it works, man. So.
Yeah. I about forgot about him. So that's definitely one that I would have put in there too. For Defensive Player of the Year, I've got Myles Garrett because this Browns defense this year just looked like it was on another level. If they didn't have their issues at quarterback or just like offense all year, I think the Browns would have made it like maybe not another round. But I think that they still had a pretty successful season. With going on Joe Flacco, who they had to pick up late as their quarterback late. But even like, for example, you look at fantasy football and like the Browns were like top 5 like all year. And it's just like Myles Garrett leading the charge with that defense. Like, he just took it to another level this year. That he's been dominant in the past, but he looked like, in my opinion, he was by far the best defensive player this year.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and I think this is one of the awards that's probably the furthest from a first and second place as far as votes would go. I think when you look at the Browns, the adversity they faced on the offense, they fought through it, but the defense is what kept them afloat throughout the year. 14 sacks for Myles Garrett. If you just look at the dude, he's just a bull in the china shop when he's rushing, and he'd probably have more if he wasn't double teamed for 3/4 of the game coming off the line. Forced 4 fumbles, had 33 tackles on the year. I think he dealt with some injuries along the way, so his stats probably aren't as big as you would say, but if you just watch the film and watch the tape, you can see the impact he has in the game and helping the defenders around him make some plays.
Yeah, it's just like his presence in general.
Yeah.
All right, so the last one. It sounded like we both are in agreement. Lamar Jackson took his skills to another level this year. He's the past couple of years that he's been doubted because they say he's a running back at quarterback, but I swear there was a switch about probably like week 3 or 4 to where they just started dominating teams, and it looked like they were going to make the Super Bowl. And he was actually, I know they were 1 game away from the Super Bowl, but he was actually my prediction. The Ravens were my prediction to make it out of there. But, you've got offensive weapons that like were new this year that he adjusted to and still looked like a great quarterback. I mean, he was making great reads. He's running the ball great. I mean, you had a rookie in Zay Flowers. You had Odell Beckham at some point, and then like even whenever Mark Andrews got hurt, he still like looked at Isaiah Likely and like I mean made good reads with him. So it wasn't like if one of his receivers was out, then it wasn't like he fell behind. It was like, all right, next guy up, who can I throw the ball to and make good plays with? And I mean, the Ravens looked unstoppable for most of the year. And I mean, of course, with the Chiefs having their experience in playoff games and making it Super Bowl, I mean, that's why that's why the Chiefs won. I mean, in general, because you've got plays like, I mean, I know that we're going to talk about it later, but Zay Flowers getting the ball punched out at the one, and even like there were some questionable calls, but I mean, there's definitely more nerves from the Ravens side than there were the Chiefs side. So, but anyway, Lamar Jackson helped the Ravens look dominant this year with any offensive weapon they had. So that's why I think Lamar wins MVP.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I think he will win it. I think he deserves to win it. I just pulled up his stats here: 15th in the league in passing yards, and obviously, I think if he wasn't such a dual threat quarterback, he would have more and probably be in that top 5 spot with passing yards. 24-7 touchdown to interception ratio. Obviously, he probably, with like I said, with the running, doesn't have as many touchdowns passing as he would. With that ability there, I will say this: I think he's lucky that the award is based on regular season and not postseason. I would still like to see him develop his game as a quarterback in the passing area and not depend on his legs so much, because teams are starting to figure out how to defend his running game, and it's forcing him to make those big plays and those big throws.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes down to the playoffs, you're playing the best of the best, and these guys are going to make you force throws, and that's exactly what happened in the playoffs. I mean, they were just throwing yards, 20-plus yard passes every play, it seemed like, and he was just an inch or two short, or an inch or two too far on his passes, and I think that's something he needs to develop this offseason and work on. I'm not writing the Ravens off as a potential Super Bowl contender down the line because of that, but I would like to see him do that down the line. But regular season, I mean, it's hard to look at the film and not give him to give him his flowers and give him that MVP award.
Right, and I think this is with any sport. Fans are quick to write off players once they lose in the playoffs, because I mean it's a huge thing about recency bias with any sport, is that like once you underperform in the playoffs or something like that, and you lose and you're out, and it's like, did he really deserve to be the MVP? But people forget that it's a regular season award.
Yeah.
One more thing I want to go to before, I mean, and this will be a quick segment, before we talk about the playoffs, is it looks like the NFL is trying to work on having a flag football league, because it looks like in 2028 in the Olympics that the flag football will be a sport. So what do you think about that?
Man, I think it's a fun idea. I saw that yesterday on Twitter, where they had opened up a spot for like a head position for the flag football team.
Yep.
I thought that was pretty interesting, and I think obviously when it becomes a sport in the Olympics, that'll definitely be something I tune into. I think it's a creative idea to put in the Olympics, and I think honestly we have an unfair advantage as far as that goes. I think we'll take that easily, but I'm kind of interested to see like who participates in that. Is it going to be the star players in the NFL? Is it going to be these players that don't play much and maybe they shine in the flag football in the Olympics, and maybe they get a better opportunity that way to make some money? But I loved it. I love the idea.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was funny how like I think like Gronk was one right away that was like, I'll join right away if they don't have tryouts, something like that.
Yeah.
All right, so going on the playoffs here. Looking at all the matchups here from the first round. We'll go by round here. Um, were there any surprises with, or yeah, were there any surprises slash like who was the biggest surprise like games that you thought happened?
Um, I think the biggest surprise for me was the first round when Green Bay. I wasn't surprised that Green Bay beat Dallas. I thought there was a chance that it could happen. What I was surprised about was by the way they did it.
Mm-hmm.
Just to go out there and control the game start to finish, and I mean, Dallas didn't even. They looked like like a shell of themselves of what they were throughout the regular season, and I think that's becoming more common, and that's why people are wanting Mike McCarthy out of there. But for them to go in there and Jordan Love to, basically look like prime Aaron Rodgers right there and just put on a show, I thought that was the first surprise for me. I think the second surprise was again the Packers in the second round against the Niners, um, and just the way they went in there and they battled and they gave the Niners a run for their money, and the Niners ended up coming out on top. The Packers, obviously, I think they killed themselves, missing a field goal here or there, a few penalties, a few missed throws, a few bad play calls. But I think the Packers were probably the biggest surprise for me overall. Um, I think Joe Flacco in the first round was kind of expected, just the kind of high he went on throughout the regular season, and then he just, I don't want to say he collapsed because his numbers weren't bad. It's just he got in there, and when pressure came, I think it finally showed his age and not being able to read the plays right, and threw some bad timing interceptions and a pick six that cost them.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I think everything kind of went how everything was planned out to go and how the betting favorites were planned to go. So
Yeah, I thought that you made a good point with the Packers. Like, I actually predicted them winning, and it's just because of the Cowboys' history of just bad playoffs. But like you talked about, I did not think that they were going to control the whole game. I mean, the Cowboys didn't stand a chance from the first quarter. I mean, it was just crazy to see with that. I mean, and like you said, Jordan Love just started going off, and it was a sight to see. Um, One that you may have forgotten about or you weren't surprised about was the Eagles and Buccaneers game. Um, I mean, I didn't think that the Eagles would go too far just because of how bad they were at the end of the year with the regular season. But I didn't think that the Buccaneers, who are in one of the worst divisions in the NFL, and I mean, which led them to make the playoffs. I mean, they were borderline 500 team, and to beat the Eagles, who made the Super Bowl last year and looked pretty dominant throughout the year, I was just surprised with that. I mean, the Eagles just underperformed. I mean, there's no other way you can say it. I mean, they have the offensive weapons. They've got the defensive weapons. That team should not have lost in the first round of the playoffs.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think just watching them as the regular season went on, especially late in the season, I picked the Buccaneers to win that game. I didn't have enough trust in the Eagles to turn it around in the postseason. If they were going to turn it around, it was going to have to be 2 or 3 weeks before the playoffs started.
Yeah.
I just didn't see that happening. I think you're right. I think they underperformed this year with the talent they had. I mean, after losing the Super Bowl, they didn't lose really anyone too big as far as player-wise go. And, the people calling for Sirianni to get fired, I think, is dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Every year he's been there, they've gotten better and better. He's seen the development of Jalen Hurts from his rookie season to now, and he's just getting better each season. Later this year in the season, he kind of went in a backwards direction a little bit, but I don't think it was anything too drastic. But I think they'll fix everything that needs to be corrected in the off season. Obviously, they're going to lose Jason Kelsey, so that'll be a big hole to fill.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they'll do a good job with that. I think they'll have some pieces that they'll draft in the NFL draft this year, probably that will probably surprise some people. like they did with Puka Nakua and the Rams. They'll probably find someone to fill that spot, whether it's in the draft or in free agency. But yeah, I do think they underperformed, but I wouldn't say I was surprised by it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, I mean, what you talked about with their offseason, they even gained DeAndre Swift, which was a big one.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
no,
yeah,
I like that pickup, and I think watching Miles Sanders in Carolina, and you just saw like it got to a point where they couldn't use him. I think that was a perfect pickup for them, and I think they used him tremendously this year, and that's why he was able to get in the Pro Bowl this year.
yeah. All right. So going to the second round, the only the only game that I really got wrong, which, I mean, I of course talked about how I predict the Eagles to beat the Buccaneers, but then I had to beat whoever was going to play the Lions to lose to the Lions, which I was right about. But the game that I had predicted, like, and it went the other way, was the Bills versus Chiefs. I had the Bills winning that just because I thought that whenever we talk about momentum, the Bills had to win a lot more games in the last part of the season to make the playoffs, and
Mm-hmm.
and they were hot in the first round even. I know it was a closer game against the Steelers, but they ran away with it at the end. I thought that they were going to keep going, which I mean it was a close game. It wasn't like it was a blowout, but I thought the Bills would finally get over the hump and beat the Chiefs. But like I've talked about before, the Chiefs' playoff experience is like equal to none, and I mean that's what's been helping them so far, and that's what may help them in the Super Bowl. But I mean the 49ers are going to be tough. But what about the second round? Do you have anything different?
Um, I mean, I kind of agree with you on the Bills Chiefs. I picked the Bills to win. I thought that they had a really good shot at doing it this year, being at home. Watching that game, I don't think they took advantage of anything that they were given. I think the Chiefs did a great job of capitalizing on their possessions. The Bills being at home, they never gave their crowd really a chance to get into the game, except for the final possession after they forced a fumble at the goal line that resulted in a touchback. Um, I just think I don't know if the Bills will get it done with Josh Allen at this rate. I think he's getting past the point to where he's going to eventually start declining. I mean, Stephon Diggs is getting to a point in his career where he's going to start declining. And, I mean, they have some great young talent at the tight end position, but outside of that, I mean, Gabe Davis was hurt the entire playoffs and he never came back for that. So I think this is going to be a crucial offseason for them and who they pick up and who they surround Josh Allen with because after this year, I don't know how much longer they're going to have to get it done. Um, but man, you can't pick against Mahomes. I mean, I made that mistake and won't do that again. I'll tell you that.
Same here. What I also think is crazy is that this is technically seen as a down year for the Chiefs. I
Yeah.
mean, you his wide receiver core is not very special this year compared to the past couple of years. And also with Travis Kelce being hurt probably about like a little less than a quarter of the year, and you still only lose like 6 games and you make the Super Bowl, I think that's just unbelievable. And like you said, we should never doubt Mahomes. I mean, it's. I think it's going to be a crazy offseason for the. Chiefs, whether you win or lose the Super Bowl, because now you're going to have more cap space, and you've got a better wide receiver core coming out of free agency. I mean, from the top of my head, I know that like T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley, and one other like decently well-known wide receiver name is there that the Chiefs could just go after and snag. And if you've got like one or two of those guys, I feel like they could make the Super Bowl again. But
Yep. I agree with you on that. I think they were definitely depleted at the receiving core this year. I think with the development of Rasheed Rice over the year,
mm-hmm.
it's going to be a nice piece for them. I do think Travis Kelce is getting towards the end of his career, even though after watching him on the field, it's like you would think he could keep playing for another 5 to 10 years. I mean,
Right.
he's unbelievable out there, but he just keeps talking about how he's getting close to that point to where he's going to retire soon. So they're going to have to fill that hole. But I think Justin Watson, their backup tight end, does a great job of that. And I think he's been learning behind Kelsey. So I think he'll be a good development piece for them. He's young, and he'll be a nice fill there. But I agree with you. If they can just get one or maybe even two, one great receiver or two decent receivers, I think they're gonna be here for the long run.
Mm-hmm. And Pacheco is developing, which that's a big piece for him too.
Oh yeah.
Um, I and not like downing like Rashee Rice, because I think Rashee Rice is solid. I mean, I was watching some stuff on him from like his college days before the year, and I mean, I was trying to pick him up in like late fantasy rounds just as like a sleeper, but he didn't put up the stats for that. But he's still a rookie. But I mean, I don't know if he'll ever be a wide receiver one, which prove me wrong, hopefully. But I mean, I just think that there needs to be more depth. But I mean, just because you had guys like Kadarius Toney just like had like 2 or 3 crucial like weeks where he just like screwed up somehow and they lost because of that. I mean, you had week 1 against the Lions, and of course, which was that one was notorious, but also the one against the Bills. I forgot what week that was, but the one where he was offsides and they made that crazy play at the end, but they had to take it back because Toney was offsides. So
Yeah, and the crazy thing about that is that if that had counted, the Chiefs would have hosted the Bills instead of the Bills hosting the Chiefs in the playoffs. So, that one play, I mean, had a big difference in how the playoffs are going to go.
yeah. So in the third round, so the AFC and NFC championships, I got the NFC part right. I mean, I had the Niners versus the Lions, and I had the Niners winning. I did not think that the Lions would be up that much at some point in the game, but I really think that like I've talked about with Kyle Shanahan, Shanahan made his adjustments, and I mean with his coaching staff in general, and I mean he got the job done at the end of the day. I mean that Niners team is just such a loaded team that like, I mean I don't. Of course, we've talked about not downing Mahomes before, but like, I just don't. I mean, the only way that I could see the Chiefs beating the 49ers is if the Chiefs lock up Brock Purdy early, which that's known to be the thing to stop the 49ers is if you lock up Brock Purdy, which, I mean, it's easier to do than Mahomes, then you can get the job done. But on the other side of things, I did have the Ravens, but I had them playing the Bills like we talked about. I think that there were some early little mistakes here and there that the Ravens had that costed them the game. I mean, so there were definitely some controversial PIs that that should have or weren't called. But at the end of the day, like there were ways like Zay Flowers should have scored a touchdown at one point, and then also whenever he got a touchdown, he got the taunting call. I mean, it's just little things that, if you're more locked in like the Chiefs were, then the Ravens could have been in the Super Bowl playing the 49ers.
Yeah. I had the Lions winning in the NFC. I thought they had the momentum going into it. I thought this would be their year. They got up 24-7, and I went out to eat that night, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to come out at dinner and see the Lions in the Super Bowl, and then, you get out and the Lions are tied 24-24, and you're like, what in the world just happened? And then I went back, and watched the game. Obviously, I like to do that a lot. And just, it was 3 or 4 plays here or there that cost them the game, and if those 3 or 4 plays go in the direction, then they probably win that game. And people are blaming it on Dan Campbell for going for it on 4th down, but you look at both of those 4th down conversions, and Josh Reynolds on the first one should have caught that pass. And if he does, then they're going to be at the 20-yard line, and they're going to be even more in field goal range if it doesn't work out again, or they're going to score a touchdown. And that field goal or a touchdown there probably wins the game for them. The second 4th down, they had Jared Goff rolling out of the pocket. He had the right read there. Josh Reynolds was over the middle, but I don't think he trusted him in that situation after dropping 2 passes before that. And even then had an open to Monroe and just was on the run and couldn't get it to him. And I think, if you look at Michael Badgley, I think that's how you say his last name. I mean, he wasn't perfect on the season from 45 beyond. I think he missed at least 5 or 6 from there at that distance. So it wasn't a guarantee that he was going to make it. And I think Dan Campbell realized at the time that it's either they score a touchdown there or that momentum is just on the 49ers side. And even with the field goal, they'll probably end up losing that game.
Mm-hmm.
And on the AFC side, I had the Texans actually winning. I liked their team, but I think as the playoffs went on, after the first round, they lost Noah Brown, so they were already down 2 receivers down at that point with Noah Brown and Tank Dell, and then it was just too much to ask Nico Collins to be that one guy. And CJ Stroud he had a tough game. They kept it close early on against the Ravens in the second round, but Lamar Jackson and that defense just prevailed, and they brought it on. And then when the Ravens did play the Chiefs, I picked the Chiefs in that game because I was like, I can't keep down Patrick Mahomes. And he showed that there's a reason why he's being mentioned as the greatest of all time. And he's only been in the league for maybe 6 or 7 years now.
Yeah.
So that's how I picked it to go, and then that's how it went out as far as the championship round went.
Yeah, one thing about the Lions game that I even forgot about is there are about 3 or 4 times, which I don't know if you're even talking about this, but there are 3 or 4 times that they ran the flea flicker and Jared Goff just underthrew it, which that was really hard to see because it was a perfect read, but Goff just kept underthrowing, and of course that can. I mean, it's a hard throw in general, but, it could show with Jared Goff. Because he's been in the league a while now. It may just show that his age is catching up to him. I'm interested to see, because, of course, we're not going to count out the Lions because their whole team seemed like they were rookies this year. Or, early year players. Because with Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, and of course, Amon-Ra is pretty young too. I think that was a good pickup with David Montgomery. But their backup quarterback, Hendon Hooker, is, of course, with us being Kentucky fans, we saw him destroy Kentucky at their place. And I know that he's coming off an ACL surgery. But I think that once Hendon Hooker gets the keys to this team, I think that, the sky's the limit. I don't know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, obviously, I just came off an ACL tear, and the recovery for that it takes a toll on your body for sure. So I'll be interested to see, how he develops through that, and obviously being a professional, and you're getting good treatment, you're getting good doctors to look at you. You're getting good development even through your injury as far as quarterbacks go and just passing the ball, maybe while sitting down or stuff like that. He's obviously watching film probably and breaking that down, keeping his brain going. So I think it'll be interesting to see if he ever gets a shot with the Lions coming up very soon, or if he's just going to be a backup there until they move on from Jared Goff. So I'm interested in that. I think he did a good job in a pro-style offense at Tennessee with the spread offense, and I think they do a good job of that in Detroit. They run a pretty, I don't want to say similar offense, but they run a fast-paced, up-tempo offense, especially with Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield. He brings a different dimension to their offense. So I think if he's given the chance, I think he will succeed in that area. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Alright, so I know that we basically talked about it already, but we're just going to re-emphasize our Super Bowl prediction with the winners. So, of course, I talked about it. I thought that the Ravens were going to play the 49ers instead of the Chiefs, but I still have the 49ers winning, and it's because there are very little flaws with this team. On the offensive side, Purdy's been solid most of the year. And he was front runner for MVP for a while before he just laid an egg at the end of the year. But I mean, with wide receivers and just like who you're throwing the ball to. I mean, you've got Debo with Brandon Ayuk, and then you've got George Kittle, and then I'm forgetting who their running back is, but
Oh, McCaffrey.
there you go, the MVP and the other MVP. I can't believe I forgot that. There's too many offensive players I've been thinking about, but I mean, of course, if Lamar didn't have a crazy season like he did, then McCaffrey is one that could have been MVP. Um, and it's so hard to defend McCaffrey. I mean, everyone's seen it. I mean, if he's got a minimum of 5 yards to get, he's getting it. I mean, 9 times out of 10. And so, even if they're focusing on McCaffrey, you've got Debo, Ayuk, and George Kittle throw the ball too. So I mean, their offense is just crazy. And then on the defensive side, you've got Bosa, Warner, and Chase Young, which I can't believe that they stole Chase Young mid-season. That like helped their defense even better. I mean, and it's hard for them to not get stops just because those guys are dominant. So I mean it's a lot of like well-known names, but I think those well-known names have deserved the recognition because of their great play. So I mean, if the I mean I know that the Chiefs' defensive line is great, to where they could possibly stop McCaffrey, but I mean whoever whoever the Chiefs' rookie cornerback is not guarding is probably going to get exposed. Because I'm pretty sure it's the rookie cornerback who's been solid all year that got Pro Bowl. I could be wrong, and you could correct me on that, but the Chiefs do have a cornerback who's been solid all year, and I still got the 49ers.
Yeah. With this game, I would think I'm going to pick the Chiefs. And the only reason I say that is because being a Seahawks fan, I've gotten to watch the Niners all year. And as the year went on, early on, they just kept getting better and better. And you're right, they have juggernauts on both sides of the ball, and you can just keep naming them name after name. And I think Cam Newton brought it up early in his podcast this week that Brock Purdy is probably the 10th best player on the 49ers team, which is insane to think about. But just watching them in the playoffs, I mean, they've gotten slow start after slow start their first 2 games in the playoffs, and give credit to the other 2 teams for capitalizing off that. But then the 49ers were able to make a comeback. But I don't think you can get off to a slow start against the Chiefs. I think watching the Chiefs in the playoffs, they're a different team than they are in the regular season. They just have a different mindset, different, just capability to, just turn the switch on and be a different team. I think that if the Chiefs' offensive line, which has drastically improved since their Super Bowl loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, when they lost that game, Mahomes was just running for his life, but now he's getting 3 or 4 seconds in the pocket to make a decision, which is for him a life, like an eternity of time for him to make a decision. And so I don't think if the 49ers get off to another slow start and, Bosa and Young aren't able to get to him and make pressure, I think the Chiefs are going to take advantage of that. And they've shown, first half, for Bosa and Young, they just were out there doing cardio at that point, and they weren't getting to the backfield. But then when they were able to get pressure, they were able to, speed the game up for the quarterbacks, cause some turnovers, cause some chaos, and allow their team to get back in it. But I don't think they can do that against the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will hold on to that lead. And so I'm picking the Chiefs in this one. But the one thing that does scare me about the Chiefs is that their third leading sack leader on the team, Charles Mendenhall, tore his ACL in the game against the Ravens. About his presence and the strip sack he had on Lamar Jackson. So I think that will be a big loss for them. I think that'll allow Purdy to have a little bit more pocket presence, a little bit more time in there to be comfortable. I think a comfortable Brock Purdy is dangerous. You just give him time to make the right read. I think he's going to do a good job of that. But I think this will be a close game. I don't think this will be a blowout by any means. but I do like the chances of the Chiefs jumping on the Niners early, maybe getting up like 10-0, 14-0 early on, and then the 49ers trying to make a late push, and then it just becoming too much at that point. So I like the Chiefs in this one. If I had to give a score, I'd probably say like 28-24 or 28-21, something like that. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Chiefs on this one.
Yeah, I was about to ask you with the final prediction. I think that it's going to be a close one too. I think that there's going to be a late push with the Chiefs, and I think that the final score is going to be 31-27 49ers. I think that there's going to be it's going to be back and forth the whole game. No one's going to really take over, and then there's going to be a crucial play, crucial defensive play at some point that the Chiefs break away. Any closing thoughts about the NFL year in general?
I think it was a strange year, to be honest. I mean, more than half the league was having backup quarterbacks start games.
Yeah.
I see people saying this year you could compare to the NBA bubble season. It's like whoever wins, it doesn't count, which I hate that. It's like you're still going out there and you're still playing. Even these backups are professionals, and we even saw that with some of these backup quarterbacks. They made a name for themselves this year, and they probably made some money for themselves.
Right.
But I think it was just a weird year. I'm interested to see how the people that did get injured, how they'll bounce back, and what it'll do for next season. I think you'll see some predictions in the offseason that'll be skewed a little bit just because of the injuries. I think you'll see some teams be projected to make, the playoffs and the Super Bowl run next year that might have a down year just because of those injuries. But I also wouldn't be surprised if, things hold on to track and you see some of the same teams back in it next year continue again. So I'm interested to see how the Super Bowl goes. Obviously, one of us will be right because you have the Niners, I have the Chiefs. Interested to see how this whole Taylor Swift fiasco goes and how the internet will blow up over that. I think that's been a wild ride this year as far as that goes. But as always, it's been an entertaining season. I always love the NFL. I hate that it's coming to a close because it seems like the off season takes forever, and when it comes to the time to play games, it goes by as quick as possible. But I enjoy the season, and I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Hopefully, two things with football is that maybe they have a flag football league that starts up to try to prepare these guys, but also with the XFL is merging with either an American the UFL. Yep, I was about to say the American Football League, is UFL. So there is a little interest with that, but not a whole lot. I think that week one of it'll be interesting, but then from there, people lose interest. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this turns into a kind of a minor league for the NFL, because the NFL doesn't really have a minor league type of thing, which I think that would be smart for them to do, just because give guys some reps instead of just being on the practice squad the whole time. But yeah, I think that, like you said, with the injuries, it was quite an interesting year just because you had some dominant or just some playoff teams in general not make it because of injuries. The year before, the Jaguars were good, and doing good things, and then, Trevor Lawrence gets hurt this year. Of course, one of the top examples is the Bengals. The Bengals are off of a AFC Championship, and the year before that, a Super Bowl appearance. And then Joe Burrow gets hurt multiple times during the year, and they don't make playoffs. So I'm interested to see them bounce back. One last thing that I will say, too, that is a kind of a dark horse type thing is, but I'm pretty sure it's with the offensive coordinator from back-to-back years, which he was offensive coordinator with the Seahawks whenever Geno had a good year, um, 2 years ago. Not 2 years ago. I mean, the year before this year, and
Yeah.
then this year with the Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield is now joining the Panthers.
Mhm.
So I'm anxious to see how I can't think of his name right now, but I'm interested to see how he does with Bryce Young and the Panthers. Because
Yeah.
I feel like there is a lot of work with the Panthers that needs to be done. I think that they're going to start retooling, and maybe because they're going to get a new coach. Hopefully the GM takes them in the right direction, but I am anxious to see because Gino had a great year with this offensive coordinator, and then Baker Mayfield just got done with a great year with this offensive coordinator. So I'm interested to see if Bryce Young takes that next step.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. That's a good point brought up by you.
All right, we'll wrap it up with that. So appreciate you coming on again, and we'll see how our predictions go.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on again.
Of course.
Looking forward.
All right, I'll see you later.
All right, talk to you guys later.
All right, peace.